survives unaltered from Sir Thomas Lucy's original Tudor mansion, a tantalising taste of what has been lost. Then we move on to Chartwell. So Chartwell is in Kent. Winston Churchill, whose house this was, once declared that he bought Chartwell for that view. Set on the side of a little Kentish village, it looks over the garden that falls away, steeply below, to wooded slopes across the combe and the soft countryside leading onward to the Weald. There are vistas from almost every room, and, as the many doors to the garden suggest, a sense of a house linked intimately with its surroundings. This serene setting, still breathtakingly beautiful, was to provide Winston Churchill with inspiration and strength for over 40 years, from 1922 until he left Chartwell for the last time in 1964. Let me try and show you a closer view. The appeal of this unpretentious red brick house, with its comfortable airy rooms, created by Philip Tilden out of a gloomy Victorian mansion, lies in its powerful reflection of a great and complicated man whose spirit still seems to linger on here. I don't know whether we've got any more photos of the interior. Yes, there we go. So, this is, let me see. Okay, so this is where dinner was served, and it has 7 round-headed windows looking over the garden. Fabulous. And here we have Chastleton House. This house is in Oxfordshire. On the fringes of the Cotswolds, eastwards into Oxfordshire, is an unspoiled landscape of well-wooded farmland and limestone villages, less than a mile off the main road from Oxford to Evesham. A leafy narrow lane runs steeply up through a straggle of cottages. At the top of the village, set back across a grassy court, beside a stump-towered church, is a square, many-gabled Jacobean house of mellow local stone with tall 3-storey ranges set around a tight internal court and mullioned windows. Gorgeous. So it's Jacobean. is a sequence of grassed terraces where a lawn, laid out for croquet, recalls the 19th century Walter Jones Whitmore, who first codified the rules of the game. I've never played croquet, but it looks fun. So here we have, on this side, Chedworth. extending his father's old-fashioned Jacobean manor house. But some 10 years later, he embarked on a far more grandiose scheme for a great west front, partly, it seems, to produce a house to rival that of his much richer neighbour, Earl Temple of Stowe. The restrained classical exterior of the surviving west wing conceals extraordinary decoration by Luke Lightfoot, an eccentric and difficult genius variously described as cabinet maker, master builder and surveyor, but emerging at Claydon as a carver of unique talent. Now we go on to Clevedon Court. So, Clevedon Court is in Somerset, and the picture here. Clevedon, as seen from the garden terraces cut into the hill behind, with the 4-storey medieval tower on the extreme left, and the great hall range dominating the main part of the house. So, what does it say? During the 19th century, the seaside village of Clevedon was transformed into a fashionable resort with Italianate villas, a pier and a royal hotel. But the Eltons of Clevedon Court, who had done so much to improve the town, lived on in the remarkable medieval manor that Abraham Elton I, a Bristol merchant, had acquired in 1709. Seen from the south, Clevedon is a picturesque assemblage of low, stone-built ranges, mullioned windows, steeply pitched roofs and tall chimneys, all set against the thick woods of Cotehele. Very atmospheric. This is Clumber Chapel. So Clumber Park is in Nottinghamshire. At the heart of the extensive former park of the Dukes of Newcastle, framed by specimen trees and rhododendrons, is the high Victorian Gothic chapel which G.F. Bodley built for the 7th Duke in 1886-9. Like the first Marquis of Ripon, who was responsible for an equally splendid chapel at Studley Royal to the north, the Duke was a passionate Anglo-Catholic. As well as building the chapel, he also provided a house and school for the boys of the choir. This is Coleton Fishacre. Now, Coleton Fishacre is in Devon, near the mouth of the Dart estuary on the headlands east of the river. A deep combe runs steeply down to the wooded cliffs above Budcombe Cove at the top of the valley. With its back against the slope is a long, low house with mullioned windows, tall chimneys and steep tiled roofs. Very quaint. And that's the interior. I didn't really expect the interior to be like that, really. It's got Art Deco alabaster-like fittings, a cool green 1930s carpet, strong yellow cushions, Coleton Fishacre offset, the spur modernism of walls and ceiling. Yeah, looks like a different house interior than what you would expect. Compton Castle. It's quite a small picture. Let me show you. There it is down there. Compton Castle in Devon, a delight of towers, battlements and buttresses. This fairy tale place, more fortified manor than castle, is hidden in a deep and lush South Devon valley, 2 miles from the sea. A heavy wooden door in the high defensive wall of the north front leads into the stone-flagged courtyard, round which the house sprawls on 3 sides. This magical fortified house, one of the very few to survive so unaltered, was built between the 14th and 16th centuries. The fortifications date from the reign of Henry VIII, when the Gilbert family, who had lived here from the mid-14th century and had recently built a manor on the Dart, probably felt threatened by the French raids on Tynemouth, a few miles north along the coast, and on Plymouth to the west. Although the new defences did not make the manor impregnable, they would have deterred attack from a roving shore party. I wonder if there's any more pictures. Might be on the other side. No. That's the only picture you get of that one. So this is Corfe Castle in Dorset. basis for